and if luck permits and Perivar blessings, interact with the Honorable Finance with the next budget, Bala. So if audience has got any questions to Mr. Balasubramanian, please. Yes, sir. Yeah, please go ahead, sir. Here, this person. So Bala, just two questions. I know you have got a schedule at 7 o'clock. I just have two questions.
Yes, sir. Only one second. I won't take much time, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
I am Radhakrishnan from actually this semiconductor kind of industry. This is a very important one. It has not been seen in the last few years, but yet this seems to have come in this year's budget. Is it because of the importance of people in the sector of research people and people who have been who knew the importance, who wanted to have the importance of semiconductor that has not been here in India? Is it? Can you say how it was generated?
So, it's a very, good question, but it would require a lengthy answer, but I'll try to, encapsulate it. Of course, the budget announces the India Semiconductor Mission, and it is the next level of the journey in the semiconductor, business itself, because we would like the chip design to be with the Indian IP, right? And also the focus is on the equipments and the material manufacturing, and it is also on the supply chain resilience, right? We want to ensure that there is a reduction in the import dependence itself, in terms of the critical minerals, in terms of the rare earth, and also in terms of the semi-finished materials and electronics which come with it. So global chip with Indian design is the focus, as far as this particular mission is concerned, and there will be focused effort on the research centers. There will be industry-led research centers and advanced training, which would come along with it in as part of the mission. And there is a very deep talent pool as far as India is concerned, be it the chip designers or the process engineers, or even the manufacturing capabilities that we have. This would enable a huge job creation as far as India is concerned. So therefore, it is very right occasion for India to have laid a lot of stress on the semiconductor mission, and it will hold us in good stead, in years to come.
Thank you, Bala. I think we have got off time. Sorry, sir. He has
got 2 questions.
Sorry, because he's running for a meeting.
If you don't allow us to interact, it's few time.
No, sir.
No.
I will come.
Yes, sir.
Please ask the question, sir.
Excellent. Okay, thanks for giving permission. I appreciate. In Madras, we rarely have this kind of sessions. The most populous country is a huge petri dish of infectious and non-communicable diseases, and our healthcare allocation is nearly
1.2% of the GDP. So Indian healthcare is in par with sub-Saharan healthcare. If you don't invest in healthcare, what is the point in having Olympics? And we will never become a superpower or a emerging or a rich country. So we don't know how do we lobby and educate you people. We don't have an economist. Unless otherwise we invest in healthcare, India is a poor and diseased country.
Shekhar, I couldn't.
What his point was that your healthcare allocation is very low. If India is not significant allocating in the healthcare sector, when India has got such a global ambitions like hosting Olympics and encouraging into Commonwealth Games, how do you correlate that? Because we need to have a strong healthcare backbone which would help India to bolster speed. How you are going to manage the poor, according to him, the lower healthcare allocation compared to the industry and other growth paths?
Precisely.
Absolutely. I think I cannot.
Is that right, sir? Your question is right?
As good as you.
Thank you.
I cannot but agree with him. It is very important that we focus on healthcare, and that is where this budget makes certain beginning. I agree with him. The budget allocation is about 1.2% of GDP, but over a period, I think we will have to look at how we enhance both on healthcare and education. These are two important aspects that we will have to focus on. But having said that, we are focusing on the employment generation as far as the skill building for healthcare is concerned, because there is a lot of focus on the caregivers. There's a lot of focus on the healthcare professionals. The allied healthcare as a segment is being identified for skill building in terms of how we are looking at capacity building in this area. But there is a lot to do on the healthcare infrastructure itself, and that is something that we will have to focus on as we move along.
Thank you, Bala. I just support what he said. No, sir, only last question, sir. Please, sir. He has got to go for a dinner meeting at 7 o'clock. He's staying back. Yes.
Take only one more minute, sir. If you do not allow it.
Okay, please go ahead. Bala, sorry, but last question, Bala. I know you have got to go off. Just last question, sir. Please go ahead.
Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. I am R. Chandrasekharan, a chartered accountant. Just only one question is regarding the foreign direct investment in data centers. We thank the finance minister for giving a tax holiday for over 22 years from now. But why not encourage the Indian data centers a similar or a reduced tax holiday? So 22 years is a long time. It also gives Make in India a good film. Thank you very much, sir.
Absolutely. I think, I think there is some misconception which we tried to allay in the last couple of days. When we say we have given a tax holiday to the foreign companies who procure data center services in India, it is not necessarily that the foreign company invests in the data center. Even assuming that the Indian entrepreneurs invest in data center and provide data center services to the foreign companies, it would also be eligible for the same tax holiday. You don't need a separate tax holiday. The same tax holiday would work, and the Indian entrepreneurs are as eligible as the foreign investors who would put their money in the data center in India. So there is no distinction which has been created, and the Indian entrepreneurs, in fact, when we had the stakeholder consultations, we consulted both the Indian entrepreneurs and the foreign CSPs, as we call it, the cloud service providers. So it is a very, very neutral policy as far as foreign versus domestic is concerned. We are encouraging both. What we are encouraging is Indian investment, that is investment in Indian data center. Whether it comes from foreign or domestic, it doesn't matter.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Bala. And probably the last two questions we'll take it as part of panel discussion also. Probably will give more clarity on that. Bala, I know very well you are rushing for a dinner at 7 o'clock. Thank you so much, Bala, for taking your time and being with us. And look forward to meeting you at later point of time. Thank you so much, Bala.
Thank you so much, and my humble pronouns to all the elders and to the lotus feet of His Holiness Shankaracharya Swami. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bala, one more thing. When I come to Delhi, or if possible before that, we will send the prasadam from His Holiness to you. I just wanted to inform you, Bala.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Bala. Thank you. And one more thing, before you leave, we have M.R. Venkatesh, whom you questioned before you joined Ministry of Finance, is part of the panel. So if MRV has got any question, MRV you can ask him separately, not now, but you can ask him separately, MRV.
Nice. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Bala sir, and thank you, Shekhar sir, for making this a very insightful discussion, especially laying out government's perspective on a whole array of topics starting from tourism, medical, AI. So I think it has been very informative and it has gone just beyond the allocations and headline. Thank you, both Shekhar sir as well as Bala sir. Now we want to move to the next segment, and I know that no budget can satisfy everyone. We could feel that here. So I'm going to skip the trivia and go to the next much awaited segment. I understand that on the on the budget day, the most searched items on internet in India is income tax, gold, and employment. Apparently, so basically it talks about what does this budget mean personally for me, right? So that is what people are looking for. But here in this panel discussion, we are going to address a broader array of topics with a power-packed and eminent set of professionals who are going to indulge in a discussion. And first I want to invite Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor G. Srinivasu, to honor the panelist and the moderator. Sir, please can you come to the stage? Yeah. So first, I would like to invite Sri Sriram Veeraraghavan, who has probably the most challenging as well as an interesting job for the evening, because he is going to moderate the panel discussion. Welcome, sir, Sri Sriram, and VC sir, if you can. While he's being honored, he's a founding partner of Samati Consulting and Analytics. He was earlier the Chief Operating Officer at ICRA. He has over 3 decades of experience in business consulting. His work includes advising a number of banks in India and NBFCs on growth strategy and restructuring. He has also worked closely with global banks in assisting their entry into India. So welcome, Sriram sir, and we really look forward to an interesting discussion today. Next, I will have to invite somebody who is joined us online, Sri Krishnan S. Iyer, CEO at NDR in YT. He has more than 2 decades of experience in infrastructure investments, private equity, and risk management, and he leads the strategic vision and execution of NDR in YT with a focus on delivering long-term value to stakeholders. He also serves as a board member in MB Industries, a leader in advanced polymers, and also in Vision Technology, an IT consulting firm. In addition, he is also a visiting faculty at IIM Bangalore. So like Lord Krishna, he seems to take several roles. So sir, today we look forward to your Vishwarupa Darshan on the budget 2026. Welcome to the panel discussion.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, thank you for having, it's my misfortune that I'm not there in person.
You can send
But
the prasad.
thank you very much.
You can mention it. Krishnan will send the prasad either through Anand, or when I come on Monday, I'll hand it over in person to you.
Thank you, Shekhar. Thank you.
Next, of course, our own K.R. Shekhar sir. No, you are part of the panel and we owe a lot of, so we will never be able to thank Shekhar sir enough for the support, guidance and inspiration he brings to the university. And he has more than 3 decades of experience, and he is leading the Deloitte private practice in India. In addition to advising clients, he is active in representing before the government on various tax issues, as you saw during the discussion today. And also he is a prolific writer, and he has written several books, and he is also he is identified as one of the leading tax advisors by the legal media group Euromoney. He is also recognized as one of the leading tax controversy leaders by International Tax Review. So great to have you, sir. Thank you. And again, I switch to the from online, whose familiar face I'm sure. If you write in English, he gets 2 misters. Sri M.R. Venkatesh, a distinguished advocate with deep expertise in economic and legal matters. He is well-known voice in national discourse. Frequently, I'm sure you would have seen him appear in television debates and public forums, where he distills complex legal and economic issues to a clear engagement commentary. And his credentials as a chartered accountant before moving into the legal practice is a very nice combination that gives him a unique multidisciplinary grasp of finance, policy, and law. So, Mr. Venkatesh sir, we are honored to have you with us today, bringing in blend of legal acumen, economic insight, and public engagement. And we really look forward you to bring a lot of energy and excitement in today's panel as you do in TV debates. Welcome.
I hope it is not as acrimonious. Thank you.
Okay. And finally, we have Sri N. Muthuraman, co-founder of the second avatar of the legendary Swarajya magazine, with 25 years in the financial services industry, investment, raising capital, advising mergers and acquisitions for mid-corporates, growth consulting and structured debt fundraise. He has closely analyzed several companies and their business models to discern strategies for successful businesses. Thank you, Muthu, for joining us. And as a media person in the panel, we really look forward to your media spin on the budget. Welcome.
MRV, we need your address so that we can send the prasad to your home, MRV, from us.
Okay,
You can WhatsApp the address.
Surely I will, after the program is over.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor, sir. And let the games begin. Over to you, Sri Sriram.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. As yeah, you don't want to feel you're alone, is it? So as the MC said, it's an unenviable task. I mean, not only that, there are 4 stalwarts here, and I think the address or the interaction with the Joint Secretary was also phenomenal. From something that touched upon a lot of things that I thought I would be asking. So I think, so now I need to think on my feet in terms of looking at some more issues. So, before I start, I would just like to quote from the economic survey. I think that would set the tone for this discussion. The preface says, growth is good, outlook remains favorable, inflation is contained, rainfall and agricultural prospects are supportive, external liabilities are low, banks are healthy, liquidity conditions are comfortable, credit growth is respectable, corporate balance sheets are strong, and the overall flow of funds to the commercial sector is robust. Now the question is, I really don't know what we need to discuss. This looks like all is well. But I think I would have that as the context. To look at what is it. I mean, which actually also takes us to the title itself of this discussion. So what is it that we expect? How do we take this forward? So I would first request Sri M.R. Venkatesh to throw light on the economic impact of budget. So how does this budget, an annual exercise, interplay with the economic situation, growth, consumption, investment, and a host of things? How does it actually play a role, and how does this budget in fact impact or help in fostering those? So I would request each of the panelists to keep their initial speech to about 8 to 10 minutes, so that we can continue with the discussions after that. In terms, over to you, MRV.
Sriram, I heard you only for the last few seconds, except that you gave me the time for 10 seconds. There is some mic disturbance. Only bad things here come to my ears, unfortunately. 10 minutes, MRV, not 10 seconds. 10 minutes, yeah. No, I know that you're all in Manimahal. My mind goes back to 1987, when as a young student of, I just joined BCom at the time, and Baltiwala addressed the budget from the Ramakrishna grounds in unfortunately, that brings me to some two important announcements. I'm making an overall presentation of what we see from the budget. So I'm not going to scheme by scheme or trying to take point by point and discuss because my time is just 10 minutes. For instance, there was a Bioshakti mission announced for 10,000 crores for 5 years. So I expected at least 2,000 crores of budget outlay for this year, but only 500 crores has been provided. So in this, you'll have to understand the government will have administration costs, this will have so many other costs, and 500 crores is not entirely the scheme. The 500 crores will be absorbed with so many other overheads also. And net what flows to the market will be far less than 500 crores. Likewise, on semiconductor, there has been a revision of duties on exported products and on semiconductor mission 2.0. Despite all that we have spoken about and seen, there has been an allocation of near 1,000 crores on this. So, long and short of it, there has been several areas on which the government has done well. And for some strange reason, it has not advertised the numbers. And certain cases, it has spoken in its intent, but the content in terms of allocation is missing. But now let me come to the overall picture of what was expected from the budget and what is probably to be delivered in the next 365 days by the government. Bala did touch upon two of them. One was, of course, employment, the other was the private investment. If one headline story from Economic Times is to be believed, the net accretion to IT sector in the last 9 months has been 17 jobs. Just 17 jobs net accretion according to Economic Times. I'm not audited that, so I do not know whether that's a true story, but it has not been effectively countenanced by anybody. So I think that that's a very valid story. So the IT sector is seeing tremendous slowdown, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence. Today we had Mohandas Pai talking about a 50,000 crore investment required in artificial intelligence, seconded by Rajiv Malhotra. And both of them say that India requires something like 50,000 crores only on artificial intelligence, not even on something like semiconductor. Just on artificial intelligence requires that type of investment. But what we see is that there's going to be a huge amount of job stress on which I do not know whether the government addresses it sufficiently. But there is something more, which probably the economic survey also said, and also the government's spokespersons and post-budget responses have been, that we have done what we have to do. And Bala also pointed it out, that we have cleaned up the institutions, we have cleaned up the bank balance sheets, we have done so many things. Now it is for private sector to invest. Now, why is private sector not investing? It's the biggest corner. It's one of the biggest corners. Everything is perfect in India. If you ask, India couldn't have been more happier as a investment destination. But let me tell you, investors do not only look at the issues on your macroeconomic stability. They also look at something called ease of business and also stability. Now, the 2025 income tax was notified on the last week of January, and it is April 2026. And this budget, I'm sure Shekhar will deal with it, has got 87 amendments. 87 amendments to an income tax act notified. Now it may be justified, it may not be justified. But you had an act which was thought about by the parliament. We had committees sitting on it for so many years, coming back, and then we had an act enacted and we notified it in January 27th, only to set it an amendment on 1st February 87. Now this is what puts investment off. This is what is destabilizing us. Stability in tax laws, not in rates. Rates can come secondary. People don't mind paying even 40%, but they want to know the law. And likewise, you take this budget also says something very interesting about investment into India, the TISPRO regulations. We had the 2000 regulations. Then we had amended it in 2017. Then we had the 2019 TISPRO amendments. Then we had the 2022 non-debt rules. Now they want to bring in 2026 non-debt rules. Now, so much of it, sometimes in front of your own clients, when they ask a question, even to locate the regulation under FEMA, it is embarrassing because you do not know where to look at it because it's so huge, and you are put to some sort of a difficulty in finding out where exactly is the regulation. This type of changes, and these are well intended. I'm not saying that these are all not necessary, but why can't we have like tax holidays for data centers? Tax amendment holidays for the next 3 years, and say that we will not touch the Income Tax Act for the next 3 years, and say that this is what it is. We have reached a destination point. Let us collect the experience. Like Bala said, we have more or less would like to see the rates running. We like to see the law running and see where it goes, and then in a singular one-shot manner amend it to say 2029. No other country. Palkiwala said in 1987. Palkiwala, I started with Palkiwala, let me end my first round with Palkiwala. Palkiwala said that the type of amendments you make to the tax laws makes it a gold mine for practicing chartered accountants, tax lawyers. That was 40 years ago. I took to chartered accountancy on the basis of his advice, and I think I have gained immensely from that. I do not want the country to, whenever, Professor Vaidyanathan always says of IIM Bangalore, that in a country where chartered accountants, lawyers and doctors prosper, the society is not prospering. So it is something that we need to think about, that if chartered accountants are prospering because of the tax law, unnecessary amendment, I'm sure the entire scheme that they have done it on penalty could have thought about 6 months back, and they could have amended it along with the when the act was notified. I can go to several of them, and it is this, shall I say, instability in tax laws. And on top of it, I will make it bold to say that I was seriously anticipating some amendments to the Prevention of Corruption Act when 17A must go. I was seriously looking at praying that the government looks at 45.2 of the PMLA and think that arrests should not be done whimsically, and there must be some checks and balances. I proposed some of these to the powers that be, but government in all its wisdom did not think about it. That doesn't make this a bad budget. Please understand, these are not issues that I am criticizing. I'm only bringing it to the fore that stability and ease of business is a predominant one for private sector investment to come in. I am not talking about investment from abroad, I am talking about investment within India. With this, I will stop my first 10 minutes. I hope I have not exceeded my time limits. And thank you, Sriram, and thank you all for a very patient hearing.
Thanks, MRV. Hope you're able to hear now. Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I think that was a typical MRV, opening. So thanks for that. And if I may add, I think Palkiwala in that very same meeting, I remember at the Ramakrishna Mission grounds also said something that, in a society, 90% of the people are honest and 10% of the people are always crooks. And when your tax laws are focused on the 10%, the problem is you are harassing the 90% all the time. If I remember right, he said that in that meeting. I think that's a lesson governments haven't learned after 40 years, unfortunately. But anyway, that's the way governments are. So, may now invite Mr. Krishnan Iyer to give his views on the budget. Krishnan, I would like you to focus on investments in corporate and infrastructure, the logistics. How does this budget, or rather, how do you look at this budget from that perspective in terms of how does this aid investment and the infrastructure side? Over to you.
Thank you, Sriram. I think I'm the least qualified to talk about the budget. One is because I have always believed budgeting is a balancing exercise for the person who's doing it and nothing beyond that. And I think the finance minister, anybody for that matter, or the revenue secretary or the expenditure secretary, they all have a juggling act to perform. So unlike an RBI governor, who can only talk about, who looks at toying with monetary policies, rates and all that, the government or the finance minister also has a political tug on it. So it's not an easy job. Again, coming back to infrastructure, right. So today, if you look at infrastructure, it depends on three factors. One is policy setting of the government. I think that has been very, very positive, just not over the past few years. I think the game changer was the GST, a uniform taxation across the country. So what used to happen was, it improved supply chains. A company used to have about 25 to 30 warehouses across the country because every state, because of taxation, because they should keep a warehouse from a taxation perspective, not from a supply chain perspective. So all that consolidated under 6 or 7 warehouses, or at best 10 warehouses. GST was one. Second was the infrastructure spend the country started doing. I think especially the highways authorities. They started building about 25 to 30 kilometers of road every day, and they continue to do it. There have been times when they haven't met the target of 30 plus kilometers, but they continue to do it. So one is policy setting. Second is the amount of investment the government is doing on infrastructure. Third is what is the working capital? Because infrastructure, especially transportation people, they rely heavily on working capital. Unlike someone like us who is, we are AAA rated entity, we borrow at, we're raising 10-year money, 15-year money at below 8%. Because our AAA status allows us to do so. Whereas an MSME who actually needs the money, they're starved of capital. So effectively, what is happening, the sad truth is, banks and institutions are Robin Hoods in reverse. They subsidize people like us at expenditures of the others, where they charge them about 11-12% borrowing costs. Right. Third is working capital. Fourth is availability and quality of labor. I'll stress on that because I think Bala mentioned about two things. One is employment creation. Now, infrastructure, everybody knows, creates something called a multiplier effect. Now, every rupee one invested in infrastructure leads to a multiplier effect in the GDP of about 2 rupees in the second year and about 3 rupees upwards from the third year. This is something that is confirmed by World Bank, by ORF, by Niti Aayog. And I was at a recent meeting with CRISIL, S&P. They had come. They think for an emerging market like India, this multiplier effect could be a lot more. So what are we doing in terms of infrastructure? One is policies. Policies have been extremely favorable, just not in this budget, across. And it's just, we haven't waited for a budget to happen, be it the national logistics policy or be it the Sagarmala, the Bharatmala. I think, I'm not batting for the government, but I think they've done the intent is there. I think they've been able to carry it. So if I have to just look at whatever the term the government uses, Viksit Bharat, or getting to that a particular GDP, infrastructure is extremely important. And I think the government has pushed almost all the right buttons. Nobody can satisfy everybody. So you have, there are some gaps, I take it up with the government, I take it up with RBI, I take it up with SEBI. But I think the direction is correct, number one. Number two, what does this budget talk about? Now this budget, I think it talks about a few things. One is they're spending about almost 3% of the GDP on projects. They're talking about infrastructure projects, be it highways, be it dedicated freight corridors, be it ports. So I think that's one thing when I talk about these are all hard infrastructure. Second is, again, the data centers which are coming up. I think Shekhar is an authority on that, the tax advantage, everything we're getting. I think that's a very good this thing. Third, Bala mentioned that we have done enough. The government can only do this much. We want the private sector to come in. Now, when you say private sector, why would a private sector come in? Two things. One is conditions that will be favorable. Second is liquidity has to be available. And third important thing is, like MR said, without, sugar coating, you have to be clear. You cannot keep, dilly-dallying. You said one thing, okay, because ultimately, as a CEO of a listed company, I work quarter over quarter. If I don't perform for 2 quarters in a row, the board starts looking for another CEO. I mean, let me just face it. I mean, that's how the world works. That's how the business works. Now, where are we in terms of the first thing? And the first thing is very, very commendable in terms of what they want to do. Second thing is data center and everything is good. Manufacturing. I think they're setting the right mechanisms. They're giving the socks. But for private sector to invest, two things have happened. One is consumption hasn't picked up. I think whatever the government did over the past 2 years in terms of be it the stocks, be it liquidity measures, be it taxes or whatever it is, I still think consumption hasn't picked up. I mean, that's my view. I could be wrong. Second is capacity utilization across manufacturers is currently at about 70%. Now, unless consumption picks up, I don't see a private sector, private capital formation follows consumption. The government can do whatever it wants in terms of giving some favorable policies and all that. But I want to see that. In terms of infrastructure, in terms of logistics, if you ask me my opinion, I think that sector is doing exceptionally well. Because a lot of companies have cleaned up their balance sheets. They're sitting on enough capital, so that allows them to leverage if need be. And I think we've been fortunate enough to attract a lot of patient capital because infrastructure needs patient capital. So infrastructure needs long-term financing, long-term patient capital. Fortunately, the foreigners understand it better because any of these, the people who hold equity in these infrastructure investment trusts, are more of the, the foreign, either private equity giants or sovereign wealth funds. Like in our case, we have IFC Washington as our investor. We are yet to see the likes of LIC participating. So we are yet to see the likes of domestic institutions participating. So I want to see more domestic institutions, take part in infrastructure. Because not that they don't understand. I mean, they understand India better than any of these other people. But there is a hesitancy. I think overall, I'm happy. I'm happier because what has happened is I was called for my inputs on a consultative paper by SEBI based on the guidelines and what the finance ministry has come up with. I thought that was extremely proactive by SEBI to see how they can marry the measures set by the finance minister, by the government, and to the investors. Over to you, Sriram.
Thanks, Krishnan. I mean, you did give an overview from a private sector perspective. Still, obviously, there are some unanswered questions on that we would come back to. I may now invite Mr. K.R. Shekhar for his views on the taxation aspects of it, the GCC, AI, semiconductor technology investments and the like. Thanks.
Thank you, Sriram, and thanks to University for having me here. There's no conflict of interest just because I'm a finance committee in that I'm here. That invited me. Before I answer to your points, I will answer to the two gentlemen who raised the question to Bala because I was moderating it. I was a little bit cutting it short, the question. Of course, Bala though gave an answer, it is my duty to clarify. First, on the healthcare sector, India's committed policy of healthcare sector is to have at least public spend on healthcare sector is target around 3.5% of GDP. And today we are at public spend is around 1.30%, which is far huge gap between 3.5 and 1.3. Plus, if you include the state spend, we are at 1.6 to 1.7. We are yet to get the 2.0%, which is the minimal target level for the healthcare spending. There are two challenges on that. Number one, at the ground level challenge and one at the policy level. At the ground level challenges, we have a lot of medical hospitals in the rural, but no doctors. If you see the last year statistics, almost 6 to 7,000 medical seats are vacant in medical colleges across India because the doctors are not willing to go and work in the rural area. Second challenge is that the facility in the rural hospitals are not so great. With the result, we don't have a sufficient, what I would call the social security backup for the insurance. Today, a lot of insurance companies are coming out and the government is doing that. So we are still, there is a gap of 0.4% on the healthcare sector spend. Now, this year I saw a direction towards that. I'm not saying this year we'll be achieving 2 or 2.5, but at least I see a direction. Because where I see the government is committed at least setting up 6 Ayurveda centers at various places, creating a rural medical hubs in various districts. Every district they want to create a medical hub. The problem with this government, in my view, they don't have a good PR agency to advertise their budget. If this budget had been presented by any other person 10 years, 15 years back, the entire media would have appreciated it. Today, this government do not have the sufficient PR agency to advertise their budget, but the healthcare has got a significant thoughts which can take to a next level. That's my first point on the healthcare. Second, it is linked to a little bit of a taxation. The gentleman asked about why you are giving investment only for the foreign company, not for the domestic company or the data center. It is not a tax holiday for the foreign company. Let me just give an example. Let's say tomorrow you are setting up a data center in, let's say in Siriseri or in Kanchipuram or university has set up a big R&D park. You are setting up a data center in the R&D park. When you are setting up a data center in the R&D park, you need an equipment to manipulate the data, relay the data to go back to the parent foreign country. So let's imagine that Google is setting up the servers in your data center, which is an Indian data center owned by an Indian person. Google set up the equipment, Google set up the people, Google set the data center and everything, and the data center is connected to the cloud. Now when the Google is setting up the equipment in your data center, there is a issue under the tax law that Google is deemed to create a taxable presence in India because of the fact that Google has got an equipment in India. Now when the Google has got an equipment in India and the Google Indian authorities goes back to Google that you have an equipment in India, therefore your profits, there's a much more bigger issue there. The authorities will allocate the part of the global Google profits to India, or they will say your equipment is in India, therefore your equipment, to the extent of equipment, you are subject to tax in India. Google will not come and set up any equipment in India. In order to allow the foreign companies to set up their equipment in India, provide support to the Indian data centers, the government said that up to 2047, I will not tax the foreign companies due to their presence in India, due to their equipment or people coming into India. It is not a tax holiday. Just because Google is setting up a data center in India doesn't mean the Google will have a tax holiday. The Indian company which is set up by the Google will have to continue to pay tax. What is exempted is only that Google US for that equipment in India. I just want to clarify that. Now, moving on to the part which you had raised. For me, the way I looked at it is that this is a budget in the right direction. Let's step back for a minute. What was the issue that is plaguing in India? Leave the India-US tariff, India-EU and all that stuff, leave it aside. There are 3 or 4 major issues before the finance minister. Number one, there is a huge lack of manufacturing. Second, unemployment generation. There's no employment, there's a huge unemployment. 3, skill development was becoming a bigger issue. 4th, the entire labor intensive segment which created an employment generation like MSMEs and textile sector is going through challenges. Now what is budget is all about? Budget is nothing but, if you ask my CFO of the university CFO, every year there will be multiple departments will come. Marketing department will ask, boss, I need this much of money for the year. Procurement department will ask, I need this much of money for the year. Human resource department will come and ask, boss, I need a salary increase of 20% for my people. I need money for this year. His job is to allocate the money for the respective departments, and the respective departments will have to spend money. Budget is also nothing but a statement of receipts and payments where the finance minister allocates the money for the various ministries. Why budget assumed significance? The reason is that when you have a payment is coming through an allocation for various ministries, the receipts or the revenue generation is coming through the tax collection. There are two tax collections earlier we used to have. One is income tax, another is the central excise and customs. The central excise and customs amendments were supposed to be very confidential. In fact, nobody knows the amendment till it got pronounced. So the budget was kept very confidential, and therefore the budget used to have such a significance where all of us used to listen to Mr. Palkiwala or any other expert after the demise of Palkiwala to understand what is there for me and what is there for an industry. Today the central excise and customs has taken over by GST. Customs is still there. Central excise has taken over by GST, where you see a GST announcement not coming through the budget. And another collection is through the income tax. Today income tax collection amendments is not required in the budget. It can come on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis depending upon the policy changes what the government has. Therefore, to that extent the budget, I'm not saying lost its sheen, but overemphasize on the importance of the budget needs to come down, because that's something which is in our back of our mind. Now moving out of that, from a sectoral perspective, as Krishnan said, infra we already got a 12 lakh crore significant spend. The areas which attracted me in the budget before I come on taxation is the textile sector. A very good proposals on the textile sector. We are setting up a 6 national textile parks. This national textile parks was mooted by me and my colleague way back in 2002. It took 23 years for the government to go through the papers and coming up with a proposal of textile parks. 6 textile parks in India. Second, one of the important issues for the garment units after the challenges on the Trump is that they were not able to export the goods. They all manufactured it, they were not able to export it because the US was not taking it up because of the tariff. Budget gave a proposal, you can sell the goods in the domestic tariff area at a much lower rate, so that they'll help a push. Second important segment which creates employment is MSMEs. MSMEs per se, they were looking at only at a banking credit, they were not looking at equity funding. First time the government is pushing a 10,000 crore. Of course, I can debate the amount is insufficient because 10,000 crore over a period of 5 years is 2,000 crore per annum, which is insignificant for the MSMEs, but the fact that the government has taken the step towards us in the right direction. Plus we add up 2,000 crore coming for micro industries, 12,000 crore. 2,000 crore over a period of 5 years, so at least you get 10 plus 2, 12,000 crores for 5 years, it's almost coming to 2,000, 2,500 crores per annum. The equity funding is very important. That helps the MSMEs. The second important point of MSMEs is that, which goes back to my statement in economics which I read to Bala, 7.87 lakh crore is due to MSMEs from public sectors, not from private sectors. Now, the government said that you bring all the MSMEs and PSUs in the trades. Moment you bring it in the trades, moment you come in the trade platform, within 45 days, the public sector and the company will have to clear the dues to MSMEs. There is automatically a push for the people to clear it. At least to that extent, there is a direction. So, third important, which I really liked it, AA and GCC. Why I am focusing on AA and GCC is that, of course, leaving Mr. M.R. Venkatesh 17 job incremental on IT sector, leaving that point aside, AA and GCCs are here to stay in India. Okay, sorry Krishnan. Okay. AA and GCCs are going to stay in India. And to my mind, Krishnan, can you go on mute?
No, the first the private secretary spoke, then some others spoke. Yeah, that's a long time. Yeah, it's a long time. We able to see. Yeah, I saw. Yes.
Sorry. So ANGCs are here to stay in India. If there is a myth that ANGCs will create an unemployment, the answer is no. ANGCs will create more employment. It will create more opportunities for the youngsters. And today India is a land of ANGCs in the days to come. And where we need a significant investment, and what MRV raised about the tax certainty. And the government is pushing in that direction. And the tax certainty, I'm not getting on the technical aspect of it, but I'm just giving it to simple layman language. Most of the GCCs are the 100% subsidiaries of the foreign companies, or it means 51% subsidiaries of the foreign companies. When the foreign companies set up any IT, let's say giving an Oracle or a Google or a Microsoft or any big companies in India, when they set up their companies in India, they raise the bill on the foreign company, and the Indian company receives the revenue from the foreign company for the work what they do to the global companies. Indian authorities ask a margin of almost 25 to 30% on the bottom line. That means the total cost is 30% is the margin what the Indian authorities ask. And some cases 25%. And all the companies are in a dispute for the last 20 years. The point that came before the authorities was that, which fortunately I was interacting with the finance ministry in a very in-depth level. We need a certainty. Unless you give a certainty, these foreign companies will not set up the shops in India on GCCs and DAs. It will go to all other regions. While we may think about we have a great employment, we have got a great people, the people will also migrate to other countries where they get an opportunities. We will lose the employment opportunities. So we wanted a rate which is certain and which is acceptable. First time in my history of income tax language, which I've been practicing for the last 30 years, government accepted a 15.5% margin for all the GCCs and AA centers which has got a revenue threshold of 2,000 crore. That means a climb down of almost 6% from the authorities' position of 22% to 15.5%. 6% of profit they have foregone. That means 30% of tax of 1.8% of the revenue, the government has foregone the tax liability, tax revenue, which is very significant in the right direction. That's most important. Similarly, other one I just wanted to bring it on the progressive amendment, I wanted to mention it. The government talked about the electronic components manufacturing. In electronics components manufacturing, it is not possible for electronic components manufacturer, let's say for a minute, a manufacturer who is manufacturing the components for an iPhone. The person who is manufacturing the components for the iPhone will not own the material which is required for manufacturing of an iPhone, not own the machinery for manufacturing the component of an iPhone. What you will have only a laborer. Because the material belongs to the Apple. I'm just giving an Apple as an example. Don't go and ask the Apple guys. I just want to give an Apple as an example for the layman. When Apple wanted to manufacture this iPhone, let's say in India, Apple will give the equipments, Apple will give the components, the manufacturer will have to fit the components into the iPhone and sell it back to the Apple. Now the question arises is that the guy who is manufacturing that particular components or assembling that particular components, he doesn't own the components. The components are owned by Apple. Under language it is called toll manufacturer, not a contract manufacturer. In the case of a toll manufacturer, normally toll manufacturing happens in electronic component industry, very high level. And in the case of a toll manufacturing industry, a person who does not own the component, a person who does not own the machine, the foreign person who is supplying that equipment, who is buying that machine will have a huge tax issue. First time in my life I've seen the government saying that we will exempt that particular company for a period of 5 years from a tax perspective. This is what is important when you wanted to incentivize the manufacturing. Why people are not coming for the private setup? Let me give a classic case. I analyzed the balance sheet of 100 top BSE 100 companies. The cash sitting in the balance sheet can buy all the US companies from India. So that much of cash sitting in the balance sheet. Now, why the cash is not coming up for setting up the economy? Only because the regulatory issues and connected with the ease of doing business was a challenge. And this budget is trying to address that through various measures. Now, what will be the advantage of these measures? These advantages, all those things
creates a sound ecosystem which will boost up the manufacturing, which will boost up the technology, and in turn, which will create more MSMEs, which will create an employment opportunities. That's the reason I believe this budget is in the right direction, understanding the fundamentals and taking the fundamentals to the next level. I just want to pass it here.
Thank you, sir. I think that was a bit of a confidence booster, I would say. The first two. Now I'll invite Mr. Muthuraman for his views on the impact of the budget on MSMEs. He will also focus on the defense sector as well as touch upon some aspects of the agri sector. Yes.
Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Thanks for giving the opportunity for the university. And let me just step back as in layman terms, as a media, we do try to address as broad an audience as possible, particularly for the younger people in the audience. See, set the budget in context. So it took India 60 years to reach its first trillion, 7 years to reach its second trillion. Should have been shorter, but again another 7 years for the third trillion because of COVID. The fourth trillion was 4 years, and we are in the process of reaching our fifth trillion. Probably it will happen in 3 years' time. The next one will come in 2 years. Probably the next one will come in 1.5 years, and thereafter we will be adding $1 trillion every year. So the direction is very clear. What it took 76 years for us to reach this 4 trillion will happen in the next 7 years or so. So opportunities are immense in India for the youngsters, and correspondingly from the same, because of the government measures of formalization, starting with demonetization and GST and several other measures, the tax buoyancy is up. So as the GDP grows, the government revenues have also correspondingly grown. Just to put things in context, when NDA 1, Vajpayee relinquished this thing, government revenues were from 2.5 lakh crores. When 2014, when Manmohan Singh regime ended, that revenue was about 9 to 10 lakh crores. Today we are talking of 28-30 lakh crores of government revenue. Budget expenditure is higher correspondingly every year. So the amount is substantially grown from just in our own lifetime from 2.5 lakh crores to 28 lakh crores. That gives a lot more elbow room for a government of the day to spend that money where they want to. So that actually determines the fate of the country and the fate of the common man. Whether you want to spend it in subsidies, whether you want to spend it in freebies, whether you want to spend it in this thing, every government tries to strike a good balance between these. What struck me in this budget is the substantial continuous focus on capital expenditure. So 12 lakh crores, this is the third year in row of capital expenditure, government capital expenditure in excess of 10 lakh crores. So that is, so that kind of money investment in infrastructure has its own spin-off effects, the value addition that, the multiplier effect that it creates. If you see over a period of time, the government's focus has been moving steadily upwards in terms of value creation. The initial years were providing really basic services, your toilets or bank accounts or bringing you on electricity and things like that. The next phase moved in the 2019 to 24. That phase moved to slightly higher value-added products, as in health insurance, Awas Yojana for homes, even the Jal Jeevan Mission. A small rejoinder to what MRV said. Yes, there is a sharp dip in the utilization of funds for Jal Jeevan Mission for 25-26, which is restored again back to the budget for 26-27 is again at 67,000 crores. Rapid improvement in the access to drinking water, it reached 81%. Government took stock of it, and there was a lot of operational challenges and some cases where it is fraud was detected, etc. So government took a pause and ensured that the corrections were put in place. And there were some cases where the states were not providing their corresponding matching grants as well. So the utilization sharply dropped because of 2-3 different reasons. But still, whatever from I think 31% to 81% over this Jal Jeevan Mission's life was a fantastic thing. So the focus in that 19 to 24 period was providing such basic services, health insurance, tap water connection at homes, Awas Yojana for providing homes, etc. The focus now has kind of shifted to higher order, where you create infrastructure and enable the population to earn their livelihood themselves. So that is the focus in the current last 2-3 years budgets, not just this current budget I am talking of. So coming specifically on that in the context of MSMEs, this 10,000 crore equity fund, yes, it's a good start, but it's a drop in an ocean. A similar self-reliant fund that government announced earlier, which contributed maximum up to 20%, and the private sector had to bring in the 5 times of that amount. Total almost, I think, 48-50,000 crores have been invested, but number of beneficiaries were some 800 companies. So that's a very small number. Yes, you still need those numbers, but that may not move the needle much. What I liked about this thing, what Mr. Bala also mentioned, is that focus on trades, getting all the PSCs mandatorily on trade, enabling trades in the GEM portal also, and allowing trades as a asset-backed security for providing securitization. These are good measures. The MSMEs chronically face the issue of receivables, so this will help. More than this, a much better impact was created outside the budget, which was the government's focus on, first they started forcing the companies to disclose in their balance sheet how much they owe to MSMEs. That was the first level. The second, they increased it to reporting. Every 6 months, every corporate had to report how much they are due to MSMEs. The third level, they actually disallowed expenditure if the company did not pay within 45 days to its MSME creditors. They disallowed that entire expenditure in the P&L itself. So which means they had to incur much higher taxes if otherwise they should pay their MSMEs on time. This actually had a chilling effect. I work with hundreds of MSMEs day in and day out. This had a chilling effect. Every time the year-end balance, they try to close it so that it doesn't disclose in the end of the year, and they were forced to disallow that expenses. Now government has gone one further step and forced the companies to mandatorily accrue interest on the amount due for the MSMEs beyond 45 days. So it is actually impacting the profits as well as impacting the taxes. So this has had a much bigger impact. Obviously, it is not covered in the budget, but the actual tweaking of the rules has had a very positive impact, and so shows the kind of commitment towards the MSME sector and the importance that they attach to it. The government's spending on defense in the current year, almost unlike in the past, a fair share of it is going towards capital expenditure. Almost 2.2 trillion is going towards capital expenditure. That's a 24% growth over the previous year. Parallelly, government is doing a lot of things to encourage Indian companies, particularly startups and MSMEs, to get into the defense sector. So I'm part of Swatantra Foundation. I'm a trustee. We hold a defense expo every alternate year to encourage Indian MSMEs to come and participate in the defense sector. We've got complete support from the various wings of the government to encourage, because they definitely are seriously looking for Indian companies to participate in this sector, particularly the MSMEs and startups. So one, as in live example in our own Chennai, is a company called Big Bang Boom. So government has this concept called defense, called IDEX, which they allow innovation in defense competition, where they announce a challenge. Any company or any startup or any individual also can take up that challenge, and if they are able to give a proof of concept, government gives a grant. And if they are with that grant, if they are able to develop the actual product, government gives a firm order. This Chennai-based company, Big Bang Boom, has won 7 such orders, and today talking of 250-300 crores kind of revenue, all in the last 6 years. They have won 7 such IDEX challenges. There are several such examples are there. So MSME in defense is again a booming area which we think will sustain with the kind of capital expenditure in defense that the government has planned in this budget. The last aspect that I was supposed to cover is on the agriculture. Again, MRV, a small correction. The NREGA allocation is only 30,000 crores. That is actually a residual allocation of the previous year. Government has completely scrapped NREGA and moved to this GRAMG. There's a 96,000 crore allotment for GRAMG in the current budget. So 96,000 crores plus the 30,000 crores included is 1,25,000 crores, which is a big jump from the 88,000 crores that was allotted the previous year. One important thing that they have done in this GRAMG, that is coming up for a lot of criticism, but one is 100 days of minimum guarantee has moved to 125 days. But most importantly, there is a provision for pausing of this during the peak harvest season. So if you go to any of the rural areas, talk to any of the farmers, one common complaint is that there is acute labor shortage because of this NREGA, particularly during the harvest season. So this scheme allows for pausing the GRAMG scheme during the harvest season, so that labor is available for the farmers for actual this thing. The third important change, I think the nuances of it are yet to come, but what we could sense is that what used to be a highly distributed work that NREGA was doing, local ponds, the Gram Panchayat will decide what is the work, what is the local asset creation, creating a bund or etc. Now that has been centralized. Because 17 years, 18 years, it's launched in 2008. So 2008 to 2025, enough and more bunds, enough and more ponds have been created, but the total area under irrigation has not moved as much. It's moved probably about 4-5%. So NREGA is in a sense, there is no return on that investment that the government has yet seen. So the new scheme that they are planning to do is a centrally sponsored scheme where the government will decide on which of those projects, hopefully much larger level of projects. And there is also a commitment that they have, the respective state governments have to bring 30 to 40%. And NREGA had also a restriction on how much can be used for machinery versus labor. This is actually, that has been done away with. A significant portion of it can be used for actually asset creation. So overall, the GRAMG in our mind is a positive impact, and so that should have a favorable impact on the agriculture. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Muthuraman. In fact, probably it is reinforcing what Shekhar had said. It is more poor PR than actual project. You know, when you look at the rural allocation for this is not just 67,000 crores as in last year, but it's actually 90,000 crores, 97,000 including the previous year shortfalls. Okay. So having said that, so let me quickly wrap up the next round. I have a couple of questions for each of you. So I'll just share those questions and then you can give your views along with your closing remarks, so that in the interest of time. So I'll go in the reverse order with Muthuraman first. See, two things on this is, one is access to finance to MSMEs. I mean, I even have the count of the number of reports that I've done. I mean, unfortunately, I've been part of a few with IFC, World Bank, ADB, you know. this question of access to finance keep coming every now and then, and nearly 40% is through informal finance. Even today, people are at 24% to 26% and all kinds of things that happen. So where is this disconnect, between intent and implementation here? How does one actually make this, easier, for it? I mean, I find it a conundrum that microfinance institutions where there is no asset creation, no asset backing, are able to, there are people willing, private equity willing to throw money at that, but MSME finance seems to have been stuck at the same place where it was over the last 20 years. Your views on that?
Yeah, see, lot has improved in the access to credit for MSMEs, particularly the CGT SME scheme. Particularly the COVID time, the government guarantee on that had actually played a big impact on access to credit to MSMEs. And so today, if you see last 2 years, 3 years, the MSME credit is among the fastest growing segment for most banks. I think 14-15% credit growth versus others have kind of tapered. Even the consumer loans are at 10-11%. So it is improving. There are 2-3 challenges. One is that from the entrepreneur side, they are still not fully used to disclosing everything in the balance sheet. Okay, the formalization has helped getting more and more things into the books of the company. So that process is taking longer time. Newer generation entrepreneurs are a lot more amenable and hence are able to access. In fact, there are several banks which have started a startup lending division and doing it. So, I think startups are risky. Even for that, they have set up a division and doing selective startup lending. But yes, it is a challenge. Estimate is that 30 lakh crores is the total outstanding for MSMEs, with the shortfall, which is outside of the system, is another 20 lakh crores. Only 60% is being met by a formal system and 40% is either unmet or met through high cost resources. So, as in government, there is only some part of it that the government can do. Forcing banks to lend to these will result in an NPA problems, which you don't want. Per se, the overall interest rates are high in the country, as in, and MSMEs pays the brunt of it, pay higher than other corporates. But as in a sense, access to bond markets, even for the largest of companies, is a challenge. As in, so to that extent, as in we both know, as in both of us come from rating agency background, this has been our crib for 25 years now, that the bond markets, as in fact, SEBI chairman has recently made an adverse comment, more people know about crypto than about corporate bonds. As in, that's actually a very sad state of affairs. But formalization, change in attitude of the entrepreneurs to actually disclose the full books in the books of accounts. One important thing is the recent last year change in the classification size to a much bigger, I think up to 100 crores is still this thing. So that is going to have a very positive impact, because any lender is a lot more comfortable lending to a bigger size company than to a smaller size company. So if your balance sheet is 1 crore versus balance sheet is 20 crores, higher likelihood of you getting this thing, all other ratios remaining same. So to that extent, that definition revision also will help, but it is a painfully slow process. Agree.
Thanks. My own personal experience is unfortunately the state of the entities that are actually tasked to do this, like SIDB and CGTMSE, leave a lot to be desired. Frankly, that's a big hole that's waiting. Over to Mr. Shekhar, as I said in the reverse order, there's a couple of questions to you, sir. One is on the point that MRV said, no amendments for next 3 years, or, from a stability or from a certainty of a tax perspective. So how do you see that, from what is it that a tax, reform per se could actually throw at? Is it there? I mean, for example, GST is far more stabilized today than what it was. Can there be something on similar lines to income tax? And a quick, overview for the benefit of the audience on Tiger Global, on which you keep writing a lot. So, just more for people to understand what it is actually.
Before I respond to those two, I just want to supplement on the MSME. There's few important data points. If you look at 2022, 21 and 22, 75% of the MSME did not have the formal banking credit. And do you know where the largest MSMEs are focused on? 6 states. Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Karnataka, Maharashtra, West Bengal, Gujarat and Uttar Pradesh. These are all the 7 states where, as per the Department of MSME annual report, where largest number of MSMEs. MSMEs, 74% of them did not have formal banking credit. As per the economic analysis, only 24% of the MSMEs suffer from the lack of formal banking credit, almost significant improvement. Second, MSMEs per se, they do not prefer equity method of inflow. They always wants to go for a bank credit. Loan only they prefer. They don't prefer a equity instrument or any convertible instrument. And that is where the MSMEs need to shift their thought process. The third important aspect is that from the system perspective, apart from SIDBI, there is no, SIDBI is also a refinancing institution. It's not a developmental financial institution for MSMEs. India do not have a credible developmental financial institution for MSMEs. In fact, we mooted a paper where we requested the finance ministry at that point of time to set up 4 regional developmental MSMEs with center and state as the equity partners and get any other institutions on public-private model. The government said we would like to do, but after our government, somebody will convert them into banks like IDBI or ICICI. That's the reason we are not keen to take forward, and you would like to promote MSMEs through bank guarantee or DGCH. But suffice to say, it's moving in that direction. If you compare with China, China has got almost every state has got 2 developmental financial MSMEs. That is the context. Probably the government said in this current year budget, they will be setting up a banking committee to focus on NBFCs as well as a banking perspective. I hope that committee should get report fast, constitute fast, report give faster, and then it will focus on MSME. That's my sincere hope on that side. Now coming back to tax, moratorium on tax amendments. 8th wonder of the world if it happens. Never is going to happen in India. The reason is very simple, sir. Both of you quoted Palkiwala's speech. There's a beautiful phrase of Nani Palkiwala in his book, We the People. He says India has got 3 categories of people. First category is that whatsoever the law is difficult, I will comply with that. The second category of the people is that whatsoever the law is simple, I will not comply. Third category is that my response to the law is based upon the quality of the law. And Palkiwala concludes that our administrators is preoccupied with the first, ignores the second, and alienates the third. So you need to have a drastic change in the mindset of the bureaucrats, which is very difficult. Therefore, I would not like to commit here that there is going to be a moratorium on the amendments. It's not going to happen. Every judgment, earlier we used to have only Supreme Court judgment getting reversed. We started with Supreme Court, High Court, Tax Tribunal. Now even Commission of Income Tax Appeals order also gets reversed by an amendment, that too with retrospective. So I don't want to even gauge on that. You talked about a GST. Christian Iyer will talk about his travels in GST at particular time when you talk on one-to-one basis, not only Christian, many people. GST is one nation, one tax, but not one administration. We have 30 registrations in each state. One state will classify this water bottle with water and I levy a particular rate of tax. Another state will say it is only a plastic container, this is not a water bottle, I levy a particular state rate of tax. So a company which has got 32 state registrations will get picked up by 32 GST authorities for audits, and each state authority will levy a demand because every state GST officer He's got a target. If he has got a target, let's say for a minute, a big company has got an office in Meghalaya or in Assam. That Meghalaya, Assam GST, it is easier for him to raise target on that guy. I raise a target on you, 2,000 crore, 10,000 crore, you go and fight it. So my one nation, one tax is very good from a rate of tax, not from administration side. You need to iron out the administration of GST, then one nation, one tax becomes a reality. In fact, we did raise this issue with the government. The Chief Commissioner of GST, both Karnataka and all the states said, Shekhar, the law is evolving. As much as you have to understand the law, we also need to understand the law. Give some time for us to understand the law, then we become one nation, one tax. So you pray to God, I also pray to God, if it becomes easier, we'll all enjoy the life. You talked about the Supreme Court on Tiger Global ruling. I do not know whether I should open it up, but since you asked me, I have no other choice. So me and Emma, we discussed this as a breakfast conversation, lunch conversation, dinner conversation, WhatsApp conversation. With highest sense of humility at me, with highest respect of Supreme Court. Supreme Court is completely wrong on that particular judgment. Completely wrong. And in one stroke, the Indian FDI is pushed back to 90s. What was the law? The law was very simple. And it is not people asked, the government gave it. Indira Gandhi, when she was the Prime Minister, she went and negotiated a treaty with Mauritius country. Why Mauritius? Mauritius was a strategic focus for India because of defense purposes. On that side, India has got a strategic interest. India negotiated a treaty with Mauritius. And Mauritius, a lot of people are Indian immigrants. At the time, the Prime Minister was Anirudh Jagannath. Indira Gandhi negotiated a treaty with Mauritius, stating that if anybody is coming the investment through Mauritius, we will not be subject to capital gains tax. That was a negotiated treaty by Indira Gandhi. It was solidified by 1992. Then the question cropped up was that in Mauritius, the country, entire country will be around 4 roads of Vani Mahal to Pandi Bazaar, and this side is GNCT road. That is a Mauritius country. If you touch that, it is only a sea. In that country, you cannot have a regular office for every investment company that is coming through the Mauritius. So the people, what they used to do is that they used to invest through the Mauritius to India, and Mauritius was a gateway to African countries. So a lot of companies were investing through Africa through Mauritius, and India was losing the FDI. So the government preferred to invest through the Mauritius. The government reinforced that if you are investing through the Mauritius, you will not be subject to tax in India at the time of exiting from India. So the question cropped up, how do I determine you are a Mauritius resident? When Yashwant Sinha was the finance minister, CBDT came out with a circular. If you have a tax residency certificate issued by the Mauritius authority, we will consider you as a resident, and therefore you will not be subject to tax in India when you make an exit. Then that circular, unfortunately in India, every tax demand gets equivalent to a state budget. Right or wrong, that's fine. When Azadi Bacholan case, it's not a case filed by revenue against the taxpayer. There is a public interest litigation against the India-Mauritius Treaty, went to Supreme Court in Azadi Bacholan case. Supreme Court said the tax resident certificate is final. Nobody can go beyond tax resident certificate. I'm not getting into other areas of Azadi, because it's a pure tax technical. I don't want to bore you people on that matters. Later on, Vodafone came. Vodafone got a good publicity because of tax demand, not because of the phone or products, but they got a good publicity because of the tax issues. Every day, every paper talked about Vodafone. In fact, the best thing is that I can still recollect when I was going to a rural area for some other matter, I said, what are you said? I asked chartered accountant taxation. A rural person would not be using, sir, what is a Vodafone issue? So he knows Vodafone to that extent. So Vodafone got a good advertisement. Supreme Court in Vodafone said that, again reiterating Azadi Bhajan, that's a 3-member judgment. Said that TRC is final. Now came Tiger Global. Tiger Global completely threw all the principles out. They said tax resident certificate is not final. And you need to have a demonstration of place of management in Mauritius. If 1,000 companies were coming through the Mauritius after a place of management, country will not have so much of place for people to. It's ridiculous. And that's the reason in my view, I'm just summing it up, Tiger Global judgment is totally incorrect because you are committed to global investors. It's like this. When you come here, I will serve a tea and coffee and biscuits and other snacks. When you come after reaching here, no boss, there's no tea, coffee and biscuits. Sorry, thank you. You buy your own coffee, you buy your own biscuits. Means you are building the faith. Global investors are committed to come to India on the basis of a commitment given by the government of India. You can't breach the commitment, and that is what I'm worried. I hope somebody will file if Tiger Global files a review, it will get thrown out. I'm very clear about it for various reasons, non-tax reasons. I hope person like MRV should champion the review petition before Supreme Court on that side. But I hope MRV listens this. I hope he's not on mute on that side.
No, I got on mute and just watching.
Okay.
I already put up my hand. I said, okay.
So if somebody files it, and one more also constitutional challenge is there. Vodafone is a 3-member judgment, whereas this is a two judgment. I do not know how constitutional impropriety of a 2 judgment can overcome the Vodafone. That's a fundamental issue. Second important issue, if you go through the judgment, you don't need to know the law. If you go through the judgment, first para contradicts second para contradicts the third para, ultimately conclusion contradicts all the paragraphs. So with due respect to the judges, the judgment is incorrect.
Right, thanks. That gave clarity, in terms of what it is and what it should be. And now over to Krishnan, just a couple of points, I mean, you had touched upon it already, this conundrum of consumption and therefore, investment not happening, I mean, the surprise is that, GST is down, income tax, GST rates are down, income tax limits are up. This is supposed to have put, money in the hands of the people, inflation is under control, then why doesn't consumption happen? So that's one conundrum, if there is something that you can throw light on, being in the kind of business that you are in. And the second one is something that we touched on earlier also, the bond market. Why doesn't the bond market really pick up? You have seen global markets, why doesn't, anything that is less than a AAA or a AA, doesn't even warrant a second look from any of the institutional investors, So why doesn't the, bond market really pick up? I mean, which should be the right, alternate for bank finance, which frees up bank finance to, focus on MSMEs and not the large corporate. So your views on these two?
Sure. So, Sriram, I mean, I asked you to repeat the second question, but let me consumption. See, hard data has been decent. I won't say very good. But sentiments are not the best. So, I mean, for someone to invest, because the private capital formation of whatever it is, the C plus G plus I plus whatever the exports and the import component, consumption has been about 58 to 60%. It's been in that region. I dipped during COVID and the government took a lot of initiatives. It took a jump up, and after that, rural consumption had dipped, rural took off, urban has tapered off. Now the I, which is private capital formation, sadly, this is not capacity addition in manufacturing companies. These are all real estate projects. Now you can't, I have lost it. I figured out despite my position and all that, I can't afford an apartment these days, and forget about Mumbai, forget about this thing, because the way people are asking, 50 crores, 60 crores, 70 crores in Delhi, all this gets added into the I, the real estate company's top line, right? G, I got to give credit to the government. Government has been spending. Government has been doing a decent spend in infrastructure, right? Now, for consumption to really take off, now, as I said, the manufacturing, the capacity utilization is about 70% across. A good part is corporates have kind of recognized that they've cleaned up their balance sheet, everybody is healthy, so these are positive aspects. Second is, there has also been a slight structural shift. I'm unable to answer that today because I deal across a wide range of companies. If I have to look either the bottle of water you drink or the shirt you wear or the trousers, it perhaps comes from our warehouses or it comes from one of our clients or tenants. What has happened is there is also this QCOM which has kicked up. So there's a lot more companies. See, before, if you wanted to buy a mixture, you'll go to a Rajaram, a Katla Mithai, or you want to buy a mixture, you go to Grand Sweets or Ananta Sweets or whatever it is. Today, you open a Blinkit, there are 100 mixer guys. So I still haven't been able to figure out whether consumption has been from the top companies, the likes of the huge MNCs or the huge private labels, Indian top people, is being taken away. But people are still hesitant to buy, spend. Because I would like to see two things. For me, it is not a question of, I was talking to Santosh Ayer of Mercedes that day. He's done a fantastic job. For me, data is not people consuming Mercedes. Have the four-wheeler sales pick up, this entry level. Like, if I want to see more helmets in a motor showroom, car motor showroom, where a guy is graduating from a motorbike to a Maruti or whatever it is. That is slowly happening. So unless that picks up, I don't see private capital formation happening, right? But I think on the capital expenditure side, I think what the government is doing, I think this is something Muthu also mentioned about, the investment that is happening in the infrastructure leading to a multiplier effect. The first order effects are, of course, job creation and all that. Second order effect is, it improves the ecosystem around. It leads to social development. There are others who come in, because I'll give you one example. And we've done this study, and this is something we had to prove to IFC before they invested in our bonds and our equity raise in the sponsor company, where we said that every 100,000 square foot of warehouse that we build, it generates about 150 direct employment, 250 people indirect employment. That's a first order effect. Second order effect is the areas around. There's a development which happens. We lay roads, we adopt a few schools, we do all that. The third order effect is, I think if you look at any of these factories, you drive through Hosur, Krishnagiri, all the way to Sri Perumbudur, there are a lot of women who are getting employed. So it creates financial independence. I'll be making a strong statement. Today there is no such thing as unemployment. People don't want to work. Almost everything is free, except ASMAC. Okay. So today the women are in the forefront and they're taking all these initiatives. So I think spend on infrastructure hopefully should lead to a consumption, because that's what I said. I don't think that the tax swaps they gave has really kicked off the spend which the government envisaged. So I think that's the reason why they have kind of come up with these measures. That's my reading. I'm no expert, right? So I seriously think we are watchful because we're the first to know, because we're the first mile as well as the last mile as providers of industrial parks, providers of warehouses. Second is, what is the second question, Sriram, on the bonds? Sorry, I couldn't hear it properly.
No, I was asking, why doesn't the bond market pick up?
Sorry?
Why doesn't the bond market pick up? Why are companies still reliant on bank funding?
The bond funding?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I don't think India has a developed bond market as yet. Because as he mentioned about, more people are aware of cryptos than bonds. So today, if you look at it, I have to be careful of what I say. I'm in that silent period. I can't talk about my company before the board meeting and the results. But if you look at it today, REITs or InvITs are very, very safe instruments. They are hybrid instruments, right? And this is something we've been batting with the Bharat Investors Association. We've been batting with SEBI in terms of trying to make them available for the retail investors. See, today, anybody who invests in our bonds, or any corporate bond for that matter, they're held to maturity normally. They're not traded as much, and not people are not sophisticated. Because including InvITs are very, very new. Even when I tell people I work in InvITs, first thing they say ITR. I said, no, it's not an IT. InvIT, Infrastructure Investment Trust. So I have to explain these things to people. So I seriously think for us to get to a certain level of GDP, infra spend is a must, and we need patient capital. And patient capital comes via bonds, long-term bonds. And today, I have the foreign, sadly, DFIs, the likes of IFC, Asian Development Bank, KFW, they understand this market and they're willing to give us money. Whilst, of course, NABFID is there. NABFID, I think NABFID is a great thing the government has created. I think NABFID is in the forefront of almost every bond issuance of large corporates. But where I want to see is, I want this to be percolated down. Down to perhaps, I think, the MSMEs. I think as slowly as corporate governance improves and slowly as I think the TREPS platform is a great thing, and including the measures that the government has taken in terms of disclosures, where they say if you don't pay your MSMEs on time, you won't see. And tell you another thing, Sriram, Shekhar was right. The biggest people who hold back payments to MSMEs are PSUs. I don't have a single PSU in my client list. I don't. Because see, my thing is very simple. I build, I fill, I collect, and I distribute. So I am in the warehousing, industrial park, or data center business. We own data centers as well. I'm not in the collection business. I don't want to run behind a PSU waiting to collect money. This attitude has to change. And the amount of cash they have on their books, and these are large names, call it Navratnas, call it whatever Ratna, they have to kind of change that methodology, right? The second thing, Sriram, I don't know if I should take it up or not. I think today, the business sector I am in, every state, say land is a state issue. Like you mentioned, power is a state issue. Including when I try to put solar on top of my roof, we have about 20 million square foot of warehousing space across India. So that means 20 million square foot of roof space. When I say warehousing space, I'm talking about what is covered area. Plus, the FSI is 0.5. So I have another 40 million. And I operate under 40 million square foot of warehousing, land. And I have the roof, the solar. Now the regulations, there's no PPA available. The Tamil Nadu government doesn't have it. There are other governments which have it. Net metering. So these things have to change. And, the lawyer / the chartered accountant, the specialist is there, MRB is there. So he will understand, no, land, try to get a TSR done before we list it. You have to go back 30 years. There will be something or the other at every land. A land can never be like free of something, especially when you go to warehouses are situated outside. I want to see some kind of a uniformity over here. I want the center to step in. Some state governments have been proactive. I mean, they've been kind of the clear earmarked industrial areas where they say, okay, you can do this, you can't do this, all that stuff. But I want some uniformity. I think this has to be there.
Okay, thanks, Krishnan.
Yeah.
That's a larger issue,
Yeah.
which will get addressed in other forums as well.
Yeah.
Finally, coming to MRV, you are free to comment on all the other questions as well, given your understanding. But there's something specific that I would like to, ask you or get your views on, is on the performance of the rupee. As I said upfront, all the fundamentals are good, fantastic.
Sriram, I'm not able to hear you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Is it better?
I'm not able to hear you.
Hello.
If you pardon me, the point.
Sriram, Shekhar or mic வாங்கி go, please.
ஆமா, நீங்க பேசுறது வந்து கமலஹாசன் பேசுற மாதிரி இருக்கு. ஒண்ணும் புரியல.
Is it better?
Pardon சொல்லிட்டு தான் சொன்னேன்.
இல்ல நீங்க என்ன அப்படிலாம் இன்சல்ட் பண்ண வேணாம். சரி நான் let me ask the question. Okay. Is it okay? No?
Yeah, it's still muffled.
Muffled, is it? தெரியல.
இப்போ better.
Sriram, take Shekhar's mic.
That's what I've taken. Looks like. Okay.
Go ahead.
let me try. I mean, the one point, as I said, was, the question of the performance of the rupee. I mean, trade deficit and all that is given as, kind of reasons. But, our trade deficit has always been 1.5 to 2% of GDP for donkey's years. No? I think.
I think the battery charge has come down on this mics.
MRV, are you able to hear me? MRV, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, able to hear you.
Okay. I'm trying to put the question of what Sriram wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
What is your view on the performance of rupee vis-a-vis dollar and GDP?
Okay.
Despite the fact we all know the fiscal deficit and all other parameters, we all know about it. What is your view on the performance of rupee versus dollar? And I do not know whether Sriram had sub point on that, but I have a sub point on that since I am asking that question.
Okay.
What is so great in GDP to be quoting at 100 when the country itself is almost zero? What is so great in GDP to be 100 except the great gun? What is that in that country to have 100 rupees against a rupee?
Okay. First question I heard it, you wanted to ask about the speculation on the rupee, or rather how the rupee will behave, if I understood the guidance. See, this budget is a very unique budget. I don't think so any other finance minister will ever have it. That they got 2 trade deals done between the budget. One preceded it, one succeeded it. And in both trade deals, we are opening up our markets. Now, whether good, bad, ugly, we'll have a debate somewhere else. But we are opening up the markets, which means on both Europe and predominantly US, we ran current account surpluses. This may at least come down, if not actually increase. We will actually, that's one of the sore sticking points for Trump. And he said India is enjoying huge amount of trade surplus with the US, and so that has to be brought down. But our biggest problem and challenge is China. We have a trade of $150 plus billion, of which we export 25 and we import 125. $100 billion will be the trade deficit. Roughly, I'm telling you, take or give $5-7 billion. So that's the huge elephant in the room. Actually, we require a trade FTA with China so that we can remedy this particular trade deficit. What are we actually importing from China? We are not importing high-tech jets. We are not importing warships. We are importing furniture, which we can make it in India. Why is it that we are doing even Pilayar Chaturthi ki Pilayar comes from China? Holi, this is Prime Minister has said that. And he has even went on to say the mooku kunja chappaya irukundra Pilayar China lane vacha. So our sunnadide, not my words, he has said so in Hindi. So what I intend to say is our trade deficit with China is already there. Current account deficit, or rather the surpluses with America and European region will come under pressure, and they may turn into at least trade neutral, if not trade deficit. So rupee will be under tremendous pressure if it is not counterbalanced with FDI flows and investments, concomitant investments at the trade deal has an investment agreement also embedded. If that part of it, the TRIPS part of it, doesn't go along with the TRIPS, the trade part of it, we are in for a weakness in rupee. That's the worrying part as far as I can see from the macro economic perspective. Second question, you asked something, sir, I couldn't follow it. Can you repeat it if the mic is better?
No, leave it, don't worry about it. We can talk offline.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So maybe we'll take 2 or 3 questions. If there's any specific question. Yeah. Yes.
Hello, I am from manufacturing industry background. I am from Reliance, where funding was not an issue there. We never used to go to bank. Banks used to come to us for funding of our business and projects. Even for our Geo platform business, Facebook and Microsoft are coming to us for funding. So as far as private funding is concerned, funds are available. As Mr. Shekhar said, balance sheets are very good for all the companies. Only the question is ease of business. He was mentioning one phone call from Modi to Mukesh Bhai will definitely give 10,000 crores anywhere in India. What are available from private funding, definitely it will come. So it's not that the funds are not available, only what we need to streamline the procedure and processes for enabling private funding to make things happen. So on that I would like to ask Mr. Shekhar what the government can do to prompt the private people to come and invest in India.
Thanks for raising this question, because when they were asking the question of bond market, I went back, my memory went back to Reliance, because Reliance was the first organization in India to raise 50-year bond in 1980s. At that time, I had an interview, I can just share this joke. I finished CA and I was attending the interview. The question asked, Shekhar, did you go through the Reliance prospectus of raising a 50-year bond market? I casually said, sir, I went through, but I don't know who will live after 50 years. Whether the bond itself will live after 50 years, I was not so sure. But later on, they went from 50, they went to 100-year bonds also. So thanks for raising that. But leaving that point aside, you asked what is important. One, a call from Modi to Ambani can give 10,000 crore for all them. I'm very happy. You can add additional 500 crore for MUT also, not a problem. We also need a significant CSR spend for all our social projects. Add 10,000 plus 200 crore for us, 10,200 crore, that's all we need. But leaving that part aside, the challenge is on ease of doing business. Just to give an example, if a company is running, it needs to comply with 140 compliances across all legislations, which is very difficult. For MSME, if you go to bank, you talked about MSME, if MSME goes to bank, any bank lender will ask what is the compliance certificate. There must be some legislation which MSME will not be able to comply, they were not even aware of it. I'll give a classic example. In the Boiler Act, there's something called Boiler Act. Under the Boiler Act, if your boiler is not in the correct place, or if the boiler is not replaced within years, the managing director of the company will be behind bars. He has got nothing to do with the boiler. And he has to give a complaints every 1 year that boiler has been replaced, the boiler is in working condition, all that stuff. The compliances is very high. That's the reason there are two things that has happened. Decriminalization has been largely done by the government in various legislations. Second thing that has happened, where the labor laws have been under labor codes, where there is a large awareness of decriminalization. Income Tax Act this year, there is a lot of provisions for decriminalization of offences. The government is focusing towards that. The second important ease of doing business that has happened, which is outside the budget, just 2 months before the budget. The definition of small company under the Companies Act has gone changed, by which the small company definition is going up to 100 crore. That means this company has got turnover up to 100 crore, they don't have to go through the rigorous Companies Act compliances. So the government is focused towards that. In fact, just last month there is a World Bank delegation had come to India, where I was also invited to meet the delegation. The focus of the report was that how the government should enhance the ease of doing business. And that's the reason you see in this government. The Finance Minister said we'll have a corporate mitra helping the MSMEs in the Tier 2, Tier 3 cities with regard to compliances with the support of ICA and ICSA and ICMA. Me and MRA has got different views about these three institutions, which we don't want to argue here, which we don't want to bring it here. But pushing towards that MSA compliances is very important, making ease is very important. To my mind, I honestly believe there's a huge intent, less action, because somebody in the middle will not allow the ease of doing business so easily, because it minimizes that power. And as Palkiwala said, India has got too many laws, too little administration. That is a problem.
Thank you. And one more question, sorry for taking the time. regarding that tourism business, in fact, I still feel that the budget, though it has talked about the incentives that we need to, the improvements that we need to make in the tourism business, but we have to improve the quality. In fact, for example, last 2-3 days back, I saw some 30-40 people coming to the Mutt to have Perivas Darshan. They were struggling to find out what is the next item that is to be taken, how to do the namaskarams and all those things. They were all struggling. There were people, there are not many people to explain things for them. So for tourism industry to develop, we need students like people here to...
That's what I raised to Bala.
Okay.
Don't focus tourism only in the northeastern and Buddhist monastery, which is very important. Please also focus in the southern side, Kanchipuram side, southern side, where there is a lot of temples. It involves skill development, which we would like to partner with the government. In fact, JRK is here. There is a lot of representatives gone from our place to Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Skill Development for partnering on skill development.
Right.
We are looking towards that. I'm not talking as a Mutt representative. I'm not an official representative of Mutt in any capacity. But I'm just wanting to tell you, this is a very important matter which we raised with Bala. I hope it gets addressed in that day.
Yeah. No, my request is the university also, students also can take up this as a, as a
Sure.
future project.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap it. Yes, please.
Namaskar, Mr. Unanal. So, as MRV sir mentioned about the 1987 budget speech, so we still have an interesting story, like as he introduced, like, and I mentioned that the 194C and 194J were introduced that time, but we still have an interpretation issue, like, we just settled in this budget, supply of manpower comes under 194C, that is on the lighter note. My question is to Shekhar sir on the safe harbor rules. So it's a good move that we got into the 15.5%, which is pretty flat across the sectors like R&D, IT, and all those. And even the threshold has been increased from 300 crores to 2,000 crores. My question is that there are certain ambiguity or maybe some clarifications needed. Like we are just waiting for the rules to be announced. So what could be the timeline of the rules that would get pronounced? Thank you.
My expectation is that the rules should come by June. One thing I can talk about this government does all the groundwork before coming to the legislation. The rules are almost back of the ready. They will introduce the draft rules once the bill gets passed. Probably I expect the draft rules to come in May or June, and then finally should come between June to July. It should happen. And there's nothing going to be changed except the forms will have additional columns. You can safely presume there's not going to change. The rules will not change anything from the provision what has been introduced. To that extent, you can be rest assured. And one more thing also, the earlier rules did not have the proper definition of an accountant. Now that accountant has been brought under the line with the Income Tax Act, so that you will have a clarity. That's all. Rest is all going to be same. There's no much changes will be there.
So we'll wrap the session with that. And many thanks to the panelists. Special thanks to those who came in virtually. Special thanks to MRV. I think it is past midnight. He's actually in Australia. Yeah. Thank you for being up here. Thanks, Krishnan. It was there. I hope it was an interesting discussion. Thank you, everybody. Over to the MC.
Thanks, Sriram. And as we move to the request Sri Satyanarayanan to deliver the closing remarks and word of thanks.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I'll not take much time. I'll quickly wrap up the session. We have already overshot the time. So yeah, this budget, as everyone has rightly pointed out, despite of several challenges that this government has faced, unstable neighbor, the microchip challenge, U.S. tariffs, multiple challenges has been there at the point of the when the budget got delivered. So despite of that, we have put up a very good budget, and which will set up the growth strategy for the next 20 years. That's what everyone feels. And I would also recommend the teachers and students to go through the economic survey and the preamble written by Anant Naganathan on the how they have steered through this entire this tough times, how they have steered the economy through this tough times, which will definitely throw up lot of light to you as an management students, as also Mr. Bala had rightly pointed out. Definitely, some of you should go to the parliament next year to attend the budget session. So that's what, from the university side, we also, request people, students to actively participate in this. Moving ahead, I'll quickly move to vote of thanks. I will not take much time. So, thanks to every panelist out over here. That was really an enlightening session, and we got a lot of insights into the budget. And Bala's session was really very insightful. We understood how really the budget gets prepared, by the government, and how they have the run-up sessions to the budgets. So these things really put up a good, through us a good light to us. Also, I would like to thank every panelist out over here, the most learned panelist that we could find, in today's scenario. Thank you, everyone, and thanks to the audience to giving us a patient hearing. And thanks to the venue and the Cool Events event management company in getting us the live relay and everything. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So after so much of deliberations and discussions, we would like to end the evening with a note of harmony by a song, Maitrim Bhajata, by Kumari Sahana Sri and Mahati Sri.
मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृजेत्रीं मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृजेत्रीं मय्याक्रमणं त्यजत परेश्वर क्रममाक्रमणं मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृजेत्रीं मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृजेत्रीम् जननी पृथ्वी कामदुकास्ते जननी पृथ्वी कामदुकास्ते जनको देवः सकलदयाळु जनको देवः सकलदयाळु धाम्यतदार्थ धयतुं जनता धाम्यतदार्थ धयत्वं जनता श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां
Thank you all. Have a great evening and wish you a prosperous financial year ahead.
கோயம்புத்தூர் மாநகரத்தின் RERA approved premium villa plots at Sulur and Veerapandi. இதை விட கம்மியான விலையில villa plots காமிங்க. வெறும் ₹1 கொடுத்து ஒரு plot சொந்தமாக்கிக்கோங்க. 2 prime location, 2 land